Now that Cam is signed, I believe the top three teams that should call Cap are number 1, Tennessee, number 2, Pittsburgh, number 3, Seattle. All three contenders. None have a proven backup. So I go back to Dan Graziano. What is the latest, Dan, on the Colin Kaepernick front?
Yeah, I mean, as rare as it is to see a Dan Orlovsky tweet that's not all about Dan Orlovsky, that was an interesting one. And I think that the thing you have to understand about Kaepernick is that people, teams around the league are aware that he's out there, have been for 2 or 3 years, haven't made a move to sign him. And the speculation on Kaepernick is all external. I mean, I've asked a lot of people, and I have not been able to uncover any concrete interest from any team in Kaepernick, any evidence that any team has reached out to his representation to express interest. It just feels like I think we all want him to sign. I think there are people around the league, people in the league office, there are coaches around the league who support him and would like to be able to get him on a team, and it may happen. But to this point, there has not been any significant activity that I would expect would lead to that anytime soon.
So, Dan, why Tennessee, Pittsburgh, Seattle? Why were those your teams in the tweet yesterday?
Well, they're all three bona fide playoff contenders and have championship aspirations. And then the reality is that the COVID-19 situation that we deal with is going to bring a different element into play for a backup quarterback other than just injury. And 3, they all need an upgrade. I mean, if you look at Tennessee, their backup right now is Logan Woodside. He's never taken a snap in an NFL game. If you look at Pittsburgh with Duck Hodges and Mason Rudolph, their QBR last year was a combined 32. And then if you look at Seattle, Smith, he's played 2 games in the last 5 years. So everyone who wants to tell me Kaepernick hasn't played in 3 seasons, you don't even know if he can play anymore. I just told you 3 teams where their backups, 1 has never played in the NFL. Geno Smith has 2 starts in 5 seasons. That's the same as not playing in 3 years. And then Pittsburgh obviously needs a backup to their performance from last year. And so I look at it and I go, if we're just going to base it off a talent level, strictly off a talent level, I don't think anyone could sit here and tell me that Colin Kaepernick is not more foundationally talented than all 3 of those situations. And if one of those teams, I'm looking at it and going, I would be sick to my stomach if I was on a run this season and I'm setting myself up for a playoff spot or the 1 seed or winning my division and my quarterback can't play and my starter quarterback can't play and my backup is the guy that I just thought was going to be good. If there was a season to have too many backup quarterbacks, it's this season in the NFL because of the coronavirus.
I get what you're saying, but Booger, let's just be real here, all right? No reasonable assessment of what has happened over the last 3 years suggests that the way Colin Kaepernick plays had anything to do with the reason he wasn't playing in the NFL. So I guess the question is, with all that has changed in the last 5 or 6 weeks in our country, do you believe the time is now that a team will bring in Colin Kaepernick? And if so, which team makes sense to you?
Should they, Greeny? Absolutely. Will they? I don't think so. And Dan Orlovsky makes a lot of astute points about the backup quarterback position and everything that's going on. And it would be a shame for a team to be on a playoff run and not have a capable backup quarterback. But Dan, I can go back the last 3 seasons and I can give you scenario after scenario that fits your criteria. Greeny, this comes down to the owners. Mm-hmm. Are the 31 owners plus the Green Bay Packers, is someone amongst the 32 going to sign off on bringing Colin Kaepernick into your building and everything that comes with him? And we all know it. We don't have to hash this out. All of a sudden, because of what's happened over the last several weeks in our country with Drew Brees, with Black Lives Matter, with George Floyd, all of a sudden this is being revisited because we think all of a sudden now the NFL is ready for Colin Kaepernick. Well, what happened the last 3 years? Haven't the owners been ready the last 3 years? No, they haven't. And that's the reason why he's not in this league. Dan is right. It has nothing to do with his ability. He can still play. Colin Kaepernick being in this league comes down to, are the owners going to sign off on him coming into their building? And if they do, there's a couple of opportunities. We've heard Seattle sniff around and maybe Pittsburgh and Tennessee. But if these owners don't sign off on it, Greeny, don't get it twisted. Everything that's happened in the last 6 weeks in our country has changed the conversation. It's changed the movement. But the one thing it has not changed what's happened with the 31 owners in the Green Bay Packers, because we have not heard them come out and say that there is an opportunity for Colin Kaepernick in this league. Until I see that, I'll then believe he'll have a chance. But all this conversation about Kaepernick, This is something that we've created. There is no substantial evidence that says that Colin Kaepernick is now about to do something that he hasn't done the last 3 years, which is get back in the NFL. I'll believe it when I see it.
I'm with you. And Graziano, again, I'll let you have the last word here, but just for those of you who tuned in sort of in the middle of that conversation, there's suddenly it has become fashionable for NFL coaches to tiptoe around the notion of bringing in Colin Kaepernick. But Dan Graziano, our insider, you're telling me you can't find any team that you think is really on the verge of doing it.
No, at this point, no. Look, there's a lot working against him, right? I mean, obviously, even he hasn't played in 3 years. You're talking about Cam Newton and Jameis Winston, accomplished quarterbacks that have done a lot these last 3 years, signing for next to nothing. Jameis for a backup job and Cam maybe to win a starting job if he's healthy in New England. So the market isn't exactly set up for this in the first place. Dan's point is good about how there are backup situations that he could certainly improve, but that hasn't allowed him to get a sniff here these last 3 years, and I'm not sure that the situation sets up perfectly for him to get one now. It could happen, but as of this point, I don't think it's close.
If Colin Kaepernick were to recapture most of what he was at his best, he wouldn't only be the best backup quarterback in the NFL, he would be better than many teams, if not most teams, starting quarterbacks. This has never had anything to do with how well he does or doesn't play.